I've been asked a few times about the sightseeing and things to do, things to see in Pune. I can only give advice, of course, on Pune, India, because that's where we went. I absolutely loved my experience there. I loved overall the people. I loved overall the food, the culture. There, when you're having treatments in Pune, there can be a lot of downtime because you see the doctor once a week, and he will change your thread for you during those treatments, and then the rest of the time is yours to go and see and do and explore Pune. So I am not even going to try pronouncing these words because I know I will butcher them. But I'm going to just kind of give tips on, I guess, the things that we saw, and maybe you would like to see them too. I guess I should give a disclaimer that, of course, these are just things that I saw and did in Pune, but I love history, I love learning, I love museums, and I love to get outside and walk around, go for little hikes. So that was basically the two things that we mainly focused on. We focused on things to do that were closer to our hotel because we were trying to be somewhat budget conscious. But there were other things to see and do in Pune that we didn't do, either because it wasn't necessarily something that we were interested in or it was too far away. For example, I know when I was there, there was an amusement park, which I love amusement parks, but it was about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive away, and we just figured it would be too much of a hassle to get there and have to pay for a driver to stay for that long as we enjoyed the amusement park all day. So these are just things that I saw and did when I was in Pune, but there's so much more to see and do. I'm pretty sure that Pune is a city that is more densely populated and is larger than Toronto in Canada. I thought that this fort was just absolutely incredible. I was floored by the fact that there was no like tour guide, or that nobody had developed any sort of tourist infrastructure around the area. So from the JW Marriott to this fort, it took about, how long did it take? It took a long time. It was about an hour and a half drive, I think a 2 hour drive. I can't remember. But it did take a while, and we needed to book a cab through Uber instead of OLA, because with OLA, if you tried to book a cab and it was like an hour or two outside of the city limits, they weren't going to take you, but Uber would take those types of fares. We got to the bottom of a hill, and then the cab could not go any farther because the road was really, there's a lot of like, I guess, ditches and stuff like that. Not ditches, but lots of pits in the dirt road. So we were able to get a ride with somebody at the bottom of the hill, and they kind of take tourists up, and you pay them a certain fee. Once we got there, it was just absolutely incredible. The sights, and we just walked around. We didn't have a tour guide, unfortunately, because it would have been nice to listen to some of the history of the area. But I would highly recommend it for anybody. If you happen to be a bit afraid of heights, that's something to consider. I am a little bit afraid of heights, and I still managed to do it. I kind of had a few, had to take a few deep breaths sometimes, but it was an incredible experience. If you're going to go to this fort, I definitely recommend that you take a car. Most likely you're going to have to choose Uber, because if you try to book a car through OLA and it's a place that's outside of the city limits, it seemed like the OLA cabs the app wouldn't let you book, but Uber would. I would recommend that you take a driver that's going to take you there, wait for you, and then take you back. Because once you're there, it's going to be pretty difficult to have a cab come and get you, or to get a drive from somebody there. And our driver told us, if your driver leaves, if he left, then, and we needed to get a drive home, whoever was around that area would have charged us a lot more than he would have. Aga Khan Palace is definitely another place that I would recommend that anyone see, especially if you're kind of a history buff or you're interested in learning about Mahatma Gandhi. It was a very, very interesting spot. We went to a museum it looked tiny from the outside, but when you got in, it was spanned multiple floors and it had so many extremely cool artifacts from Indian culture, from the area. And if you are into museums, I would certainly recommend you give that a good look. We went to Karla Caves towards the end of our trip, and I liked it well enough, but I don't know. If I had to rate the must-sees as far as going to Pune, for me, Karla Caves would be kind of towards the bottom. It was really cool, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, if I hadn't seen it, it wouldn't have really bothered me that much now that I've seen it. But with that said, if you go to see it, you might absolutely love it and wonder what I was talking about. I would say certainly look into it, and it was a very cool little day trip. If you're going to go here, I would also recommend that you take a driver that's going to pick you up at your wherever you're staying, drive you there, wait for you, and drive you back, because it's, at least as far as from where we were staying, is quite far out, and it would have been very difficult, I think, to find somebody who was willing to take us back in without really, really gouging us, at least. We went there, I just think, towards the beginning of our trip. We wanted to try to see things closer to our hotel, and, we honestly weren't really that impressed with it. I hope I don't sound, rude or anything like that, but if we didn't see it, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, but at the same time, it was really a good excuse to get out and go for a walk. So I would certainly recommend that anyone see it. Why not? The zoo in Pune was pretty cool. That was our we went there during our first bit of the trip, and it was our first real experience with the honest price gouging that people in Pune, establishments in Pune, engage in. So walk into this zoo, and there's a price that said something like 20 rupees for, no, for locals, or 50 rupees for locals, something like that, and then for foreigners it was 200 rupees. We just thought that was hilarious. But that was definitely, I would say, I really enjoyed my time there. I think we spent a good 2, 3 hours at the zoo, just wandering around and seeing the animals. And the locals were fascinated with us as we were sitting there saying, "Oh my God, an elephant! Oh my God, I've only seen that on TV." They were looking at us like, "Oh my God, a Canadian! I've only seen that on TV." So we thought that was pretty funny. I really, really loved our little day trip to this location. I would recommend it to anyone. It is a hill you walk up, a really steep flight of stairs, and then you're just on this beautiful hill overlooking the city, and you're able to wander around and see various temples. And I think we stayed there for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, just wandering around. It would have been really cool if we'd had some sort of tour guide just to explain things to us, but it was extremely, extremely cool. We were done with our little excursion here. It was really easy for us to walk down the hill and then kind of go towards the street and find multiple, multiple, multiple rickshaws. So I wouldn't worry about having a driver that picks you up, drops you off, and waits for you. This temple was close to our hotel. I think it was like maybe a 5, maybe a 10-minute walk down the street for us. So we decided to go, and coincidentally, we decided to go on a Sunday, which, if for a lot of people in Pune, is considered to be family day. So it was really, really cool to go at that time and see so many people out and about with their families worshiping. If you walk up the stairs to the top of the hill that this temple is at, you can see quite a bit. It has a really nice view of Pune, and I would recommend that place to anyone as well. It was just such a very cool experience to kind of go in and see people going about their regular worship rituals. because I've only ever been to churches really in Canada, and I've never seen anything like that. We walked in, we had no idea where we should have started, what we should have did, you know, where we should stand, how we were supposed to get in, type of thing. Because when we walked in, there was like a lineup and people were giving, I suppose, offerings or donations to go into the rest of the temple. But the locals, as usual, were just amazing and friendly and helpful. If you are into hiking or walking at all, then Beetle Hill, I hope I pronounced that right. Beetle Hill was really, really cool. If you're going to go there, I would recommend that you have a driver that's going to drive you there and wait for you and then take you back. Yeah, it was just basically a hill. There was a lake, I think, and we saw locals swimming in it. There were a few temples. It was just really, really good to get out and get walking. And I would recommend that place as well if you're into hiking or nature or walking. If you like shopping at all, I would highly recommend that you check out the West End Mall. It was incredible, it was huge, and it had a lot more shopping options than my hotels. It had a lot more shopping options than a lot of the malls that are in my area. They had a lot of places to shop if you were a tourist and you wanted some souvenirs. They had shops, jewelry shops, cosmetics, perfume, nail polish, Nike, Puma, anything like that. Clothing. They have lots of really cool Indian clothing, but also lots of cool clothing that you might recognize back home as far as the styles, which they call Western wear in a lot of stores. So it's definitely a good way to spend some time. And one thing to consider, of course, if you're having Kshar Sutra treatment, is that you might be needing or wanting to get out of the hotel and walk around, but maybe you don't want to be outside because it's too hot. So malls could be a good option. That mall was pretty much right next door to our hotel, so we spent a lot of time there. If there were English speaking movies that we were interested in watching, we went to those. If we were just bored and wanted to get out of the house, we would go wander through the mall. I really loved going to the salon there because considering the currency conversion, it was relatively cheap for us to have things done. So that I would recommend that to anybody, certainly if it's close. I wouldn't say if you're expecting to get like a cheap price or a deal, I wouldn't recommend the West End Mall or the Pavilion Mall. They're more like upscale, higher end malls. I forget the name of the cinemas that they have there in Pune, and I'll insert that. But we would often go to the movies to pass the time, and we're movie buffs anyway. One thing that the theater that we went to that was in the Pavilion Mall, one thing that they had was these really, really cool Lazy Boy recliner seats. And I'll have to insert a picture because these things were really, really, really cool. They cost a little bit more money than the regular seats. The regular seats were amazing and they were ones that you could like push your seat back or rock a little bit back and forth. But if you want the experience, if you've never had it, as I did not, and you're interested in seeing a movie, I would recommend going to the cinema and pay a little extra money and get one of those super posh seats and recline that bad boy and enjoy yourself because that we did that once when we were there. We went to the movies a few times, but one time we had the big luxury reclining seats, and I've never been so comfortable seeing a movie in my entire life. When here it was during Diwali, and there was a fort making competition that was going on. So actually, when we went there, it was like the day of Diwali, like the first day, because I think they celebrated over a period of time, but it was like that day. So it was very, very, very cool to see people out in their brand new clothes, and everyone was just it was just such a really cool, chill vibe. They had a fort making competition, and some of the forts that people made were just out of this world. But depending on when you go, they might have certain things going on or not. But I would recommend going there to anybody because it's quite a lovely park, and it's nice to get out and just wander around if you are interested in walking or in being out and kind of observing nature a little bit. We saw the National War Museum, which I absolutely loved. It was one of the best museums I've ever seen, which is saying something because wherever I go, I definitely want to see the libraries and the museums because I'm a huge nerd like that. This museum, you should know, was free, which we were just floored by because wherever we went in Pune, people wanted money for something and they wanted more money from us because we were foreigners. But you basically get there, you wander in, you can see tanks, you can see some of the huge weapons they had, statues and displays of pretty much any fights or wars they'd had from way, way, way back when until recent times. So that I would highly recommend that to anybody if you're interested in museums, if you're a history buff, if you're interested in that sort of subject, if you're just curious, because it's free and we spent quite a bit of time there, and yeah, I'd recommend it to anybody. I'll admit to being quite a simple person, in my opinion, and simple things amuse me that might not amuse others, so I'm not sure about this. But when I was a little girl, I would watch cartoons, like a lot of little girls do, and I would see camels on TV or in cartoons, and I always, always, always wanted to see one in real life, which the locals in Pune did not seem to understand at all. They thought I was crazy. Anyway, so I made an excursion to find a camel because I thought when we got there I would see camels. And we saw goats, we saw chickens, we saw dogs, we saw pigs, but it was pretty difficult to find a camel. If by perchance you too are interested in finding a camel and hopping on that thing and having a camel ride, as far as when I went, which was in November of 2017. If you go to the oh, I'm going to have to insert the name of this. If you go to a dam towards, I'll have to insert the name of this too. There is a dam that is towards a fort that I mentioned, and if you go there, there might be a person kind of wandering up and down the road offering camel rides. So, of course, when I saw him, I was like, oh yeah, I'm getting on that thing. I'm sure there's camels in other areas of Pune, other areas of India, but we were there for close to 7 weeks, and I only ever saw that camel and one other camel who ironically was wandering by my hotel while I was waiting for a cab to go find this other camel. I hopped on that one too. But if you are interested in finding a camel, getting your picture taken with one, going on a little camel ride, that would be the place that I found one. And I'm not sure when you watch this video, I'm not sure if it'll still be there or not, but you might want to look into it.